Hi friends, welcome to CodeNet, and today we want to see how we can work with different types of data types in PHP. For now, what we've just understood is variables are the things that hold on to different types of data. If it is a number, we can keep that inside a variable. If it is a name of an individual or a thing that contains multiple characters, that thing can be kept as data inside a variable. Now today what we want to analyze is what are those different types of data that are kept inside the variables in PHP. So to implement and to start working with, of course, the different types of variables, we first need to implement the actual syntax of PHP, of which we say we start with a less than sign, a question mark, and then the keyword, of course, PHP, that denotes the starting of the script for PHP, and the ending of the script ends in that syntax, a question mark and a greater than sign. And now to work with different data types of PHP, we'll first analyze the first data type, which is called a string. And let's just implement a comment strings. And definitely, since we have already understood what comments are and how we can work with comments, you can tell that this won't be executed by the local server which we've installed, which is XAMPP server for now. So to work with the strings, we definitely need to create a variable that can hold on to that data type or to that type of data which will be kept inside the variable that we create. So for example, we can say, okay, I'm creating a variable now, a variable that will hold on to the string as a data type on its own. So I'm saying, okay, this is a variable called cn, that is the name of the variable, and definitely the content that should go inside this variable, since I'm working with the strings, please get this clear. If we are working with the strings, the content that we want to be inside the actual variable that we've implemented. For now, we've implemented cn as simply a variable. So the content or the strings as a data type should be in between the double quotes. If not the double quotes, then in between the single quotes. But I personally, I like using the double quotes, and definitely I can say, hey, Joseph loves coordinate. So this is a string because it contains multiple characters. This is not a number, I mean. Hey, Joseph loves coordinate. So this is a string, and this is how we work with strings in PHP. The content that are, of course, to be sent into the variable should be in between the double quotes. If not the double quotes, then in between the single quotes. So hey, Joseph loves coordinate. And definitely we can even, if we want, print out the content that is in the variable cn as a variable name. To print out, so far we've learned that we use the keyword echo, and then we implement the variable name, which is cn, and then we terminate with a semicolon. And then from there we can even refresh our page. If you want to reach at this stage where you can connect the IDE, the browser, and also the server that you are using, please check the description. There is a video that will make you arrive at this same actual stage. So if I refresh my browser, then definitely I'm printing out, hey, Joseph loves coordinate. And definitely this is way easy to see. But what if we want to be assured that yes, we are working with the strings as a data type at this point? Is there any function that we can implement which can return the actual data type that we are working with? Well, definitely we do have a function, and for we to implement this function, let's just print that same function, the content that will be on the output for that function, on a new line by implementing a line break statement, which is of course br, and definitely we just terminate that. We understand by now what br is from our previous sessions, and from there we can use that function which will return the actual name for the data type that we are working with. That function is called var, which is standing in, of course, for variable, and underscore, and we add the keyword dump. Of course, depending on the teacher, I call it variable dump or var dump, and definitely we open the parentheses, and immediately when we open the parentheses, from there we can implement the actual variable name which is holding on to the data type that we want to return its value. If I return now my browser, if I refresh, definitely you can tell that okay, I'm working with a string as a data type, and it contains 25 characters including the spaces in between the characters. Hey, Joseph loves coordinate. And from here we can of course understand the basic knowledge that we need to understand when it comes to the strings. So whenever you are coding and then you create a variable with double quotes, then the content in between, just know that what you are implementing is simply a string as a data type. What other data types can we implement in PHP? Well, another data type that we can implement is simply a data type which is called integers. And definitely we can tell that okay, what is an integer? An integer is simply a whole number, a number that does not have any decimal place or any decimal value. So we can work with integers also when it comes to PHP. And to implement the integers, let's just also copy this statement which allows us to break the lines and to print each and every line in a new line. And once we've copied this line, then we can outline or give a practical approach to how we can work with the integers in PHP. So to work with the integers, at first also we need to simply create a variable that will hold on to that specific number, to that same integer, to that same whole number. For example, I can say okay, this is a variable and I'm calling it num. Num, to stand in for the number, is equal to 56. I even put a semicolon, and then from there you can tell okay, what's the difference between the integer and the string? Okay, the strings were kept in the double quotes, inside the double quotes, and for the numbers, wow, they are just outside without double quotes, and this is the actual difference. And if we were again to return the actual data type for we to see if definitely we are working with the integers, we can use the same key function which is variable dump, variable dump, depending with the teacher again, and then from there you can say okay, dup, and then of course the parentheses and the actual variable name, which is definitely num as a variable, and then you terminate with a semicolon. If I am to refresh the page again, you see that okay, this is int and it's holding on to 56. So int standing in for integers as a short form of integers. Another type of data type that we can work with, of course, in PHP is simply a data type which is called float. Now float is similar, very similar to whole numbers, except that the difference is that this data type contains decimal values. These are types of numbers like 7.13, 7.24, 25.3. Of course, that is what we call a float or a decimal value number. And to work with the float, again, let's implement simply a line break, which is of course BR, because we want to print out also the next lines in new lines, unlike where we proceed printing in the same lines. And then we can implement now the actual variable that will hold on to the float as a number, and then I will just say n simply for the variable name, and then I will insert now the actual data that should go inside n as simply a variable. Let's say 7.134, and then you terminate with of course a semicolon. Once we terminate, we can return the actual value, which will tell us okay, we are now working with float or simply decimal values, VAR, and then underscore dump, open the parentheses, and from there definitely we can now add the actual name for the variable with a semicolon. Immediately when we refresh, definitely we will see the actual name for the variable, which is float 7.134. Now, another type of a data type that is readily available in PHP is a data type which is called Boolean, or in short, we can just call it a bool as a type of data type. So it is shortened as bool as a data type. Then when we want to call the actual data type without shortening it, it is called a Boolean type of data type. So this type of data type is a data type that only holds on to one value. That value can either be a true or a false. Again, that type of value can either be, of course, a 1 or a 0. True standing in for 1, false standing in for 0, which is similar to nothing since 0 is equal to null. So definitely this is a type of data type. For example, if we implement, of course, a line break, we can say, okay, a variable which we want to make x is equal to true, and definitely we even put a semicolon. If we were to echo the content of x, then we can say, okay, echo the content in the variable x, and from there we can even add another line break for it to return now to implement a function that will return the actual name for this as a data type. var underscore gmp, of course, open the parentheses, and then you add now the actual name for the variable, and then you terminate with a semicolon. If we were to refresh the page, then you can tell, okay, true standing in for 1 and bool is equal to true, 1 is equal to true, and of course you can tell that, oh, this is again another type of a data type. We will work with these data types as we proceed in these sessions, and one of the data types that we will implement further, because this is just for basic understanding, is called an array data type. Of course, we've not implemented yet. We have a session on its own, and it will allow us to see why it is kind of a special type of data type when it comes to PHP as we progress with the next studies. Please don't forget to subscribe, and so far you can tell that, okay, we use the key function variable dump if we want to return the actual name for the data type that we've implemented. And again, all the data types should be kept inside the variables of which we've implemented. Of course, up to now we have, of course, a cn as a variable, a num as a variable, an n as a variable, and x as a variable, just for the illustration's sake. And from there, again, you can tell that, okay, we can echo or print out the content inside the variables, which will return the values that are respective to different data types of PHP. So this is the actual content that we can present in this session. Let's progress in our next session as we understand more on the content that is needful for we to complete the entire course of PHP. Please don't forget to subscribe, and you are on Coordinate.